For more than 100 years, if you talked about cars, you were really talking about places like Detroit, Tokyo, and Stuttgart, right? But in just the last decade, something huge has happened. A massive shift, all powered by batteries. We're going to dig into how one country just completely redrew the world's auto map.
Okay, let's just jump right in with the most important chart you need to see. This is where all the electric cars were sold last year. See that enormous bar on the left? Yeah, that's China. 60%. 60% of all EVs sold on the planet. I mean, that's not just leading the pack. That is complete and total dominance.
Let me just say that again, because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. More electric cars are now sold in China than in every other country in the world combined. This isn't a small change. This is a total reshaping of an industry that's been around for a century. So you have to ask the question, right? How on earth did this happen so fast? Was this some kind of accident, a fluke in the market? Nope, not even close. This was the result of a very deliberate, very long-term, and, well, an incredibly effective strategy. And that brings us to the blueprint, the playbook they used. See, China didn't just wait for an EV revolution to happen. It went out and engineered one. So let's break down exactly how they pulled it off. The entire strategy, which took more than a decade to play out, really boils down to these 3 key steps. First up, subsidize everything. The government poured billions and billions of dollars into the market, giving cash to both the people buying the cars and the companies making them. Second, own the battery. They zeroed in on controlling the single most important part of an EV. And third, and this might be the secret sauce, unleash competition. They didn't just pick one company to be the national champion. Instead, they created this brutal, hyper-competitive market where dozens of companies had to fight it out. That forged some seriously tough innovators, and crucially, it drove prices way, way down. You know, what we're really talking about here is a textbook case of industrial policy. This isn't about just letting the free market work its magic. No, this is about a government strategically putting its thumb on the scare, making a huge bet on a specific technology, and then building an entire ecosystem, everything from the mines to the factories to the charging stations, just to make sure that bet pays off. And this slide right here perfectly shows you step 2, own the battery. An electric car is really just a computer with a giant battery on wheels, right? Well, look at this. China controls an incredible 75% of the entire global battery supply chain. They figured out really early on that if you control the battery, you control the car. Simple as that. So here's the key takeaway. This was never just about assembling cars. It was about controlling the core technology, the heart of the machine, and all the raw materials that go into it. And that gives Chinese companies this massive, built-in advantage in both cost and supply over pretty much every other car maker in the world. Now, a success that big doesn't just stay home. It creates a global shockwave. And the effects of that strategy are now washing up on shores all around the world. And you can bet the legacy automakers are feeling the pressure. And this just perfectly illustrates the real-world result. Just look at the price difference here for a very similar electric sedan. Because they control the supply chain, and because of all that intense competition at home, Chinese brands like BYD can make really high-quality EVs for tens of thousands of dollars less than their Western rivals. That's not just an advantage, that's a game changer. And you can see the damage it's doing right here. For decades, if you were in China, you probably drove a car from a Western or a Japanese brand. They owned that market. But look at this. Their market share is in an absolute free fall because Chinese consumers are flocking to their own domestic EV brands. They're getting beat at their own game in the world's biggest market. Hey, don't just take my word for it. The panic is very real. This quote from a CEO at a major Western car company basically sums up the mood in boardrooms from Detroit to Germany to Japan. They know they're behind, and they are scrambling to figure out how to catch up. But here's the thing. The challenge isn't just inside China anymore. Last year, 1 out of every 4 new cars exported from China was electric. They've conquered their home turf, and now they are expanding aggressively into Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America. The shockwave has officially gone global. So, okay, why should you care about any of this? Well, on one hand, it's pretty good news. It could mean more affordable electric cars are coming your way soon, but it also means massive pressure on the local car brands you know. It means the center of gravity for car innovation is shifting east, and it's kicking off some major geopolitical arguments about tariffs and trade, which could end up affecting car prices for everybody. Which brings us to the road ahead. The map has been redrawn, for sure, but this story is far from over. How are Western governments and car companies going to respond? Is it going to be a trade war with tariffs? A new race to innovate? Massive new investments? Nobody knows for sure. And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. For generations, the dream car, the best car, was designed in America or Germany or Japan. But after everything we've just seen, the question we all have to start asking ourselves is, will your next car be designed in Shanghai? The answer to that is going to define the future of how